Imagine two people opening up a restaurant and it's terrible food. It's hot dogs, pizzas, low quality, empty calorie food that doesn't serve the customers from a health perspective. Owner number one and owner number two are both aware of things like heart disease, cancer, all sorts of terminal illnesses that can hurt their customers if they continue to come back and eat their product, though they open up the business nonetheless. One day, owner number one says, I want to up the ante and I'd like to put more bacon in the burgers. I think we'll sell more burgers. It'll be better for business and we'll make a lot more money. Owner number two says, hey, we can't do that because if we put more bacon in the burgers, there are things like heart disease, there's cancer, there's terminal illnesses, there's all sorts of ways that we will hurt our customers if we add all that bacon. Which is all very true, and it's quite noble by owner number two to say. But he was aware of these dangers before he opened up the business. Owner number one is simply just going all in and committing to their business venture. You cannot fault owner number one. When I watch Everyday Struggle and I see Joe Budden press DJ Akademiks about these kind of issues that I've tackled before on the channel, in the description below, it'll be the video where I titled it, Allow Me to Hate on DJ Akademiks, where I discuss the Vic Mensa issue with Akademiks and Budden on Everyday Struggle. Obviously, we've been down this road before. This is a systemic issue, blah, 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 violence, black men, all that. We've been down that road before, except why is it that Budden, it's sort of like he never understood the nature of Akademiks' content. There's a very big difference between Joe Budden telling DJ Akademiks, listen, with Migos jumping XXX, I know this is the sort of content that you've always created. This is how you've garnered a lot of your audience. I know this is what you do. However, you are being mentioned in these videos now, and I think it's getting a bit too personal, and you're beginning to cross the line. I don't think you should continue making this content. But that's not what he said. What he said was, I don't want to be involved in any of this shit. Your name is being involved. You should stop. Get the fuck out of here with this fuckity fuck shit and all that mess. It's very self-righteous to sort of act like you had no idea this was going on. This has been a complaint of Joe's for a while now. And it was something that Joe sort of relished in when Mensa mentioned that to Akademiks. So Joe was very aware of the bullshit that Akademiks does. But I want to give Akademiks credit here because he's the smartest man in the room in this discussion. Whenever I watch Everyday Struggle, I see clips. I don't sit through the whole show because I don't sit through a lot of shows. But, I watch random clips that are on YouTube. And whenever I watch it, I sort of side with this and I side with that. But in this situation, Akademiks is the smartest person in the room. Because while Joe is going off on him and telling him all this stuff about OGs and the dangers that can come to him, Akademiks says, well, wait a minute. We're discussing this on the show right now. We led the show with this. Isn't it a bit hypocritical of us to all of a sudden just step away from it and say that it's negative when this is what we started the show off with? Make no mistake about it, folks. Joe Budden, I think he is an amazing media personality. I love Joe as an MC. I'm starting to like him a bit more as a media personality because Joe is so passionate. He's so aggressive. His sort of bipolar nature is part of what makes him a unique media personality within this realm that we haven't seen before. But the show was built off of Akademiks' content. It was built off of the idea that Complex couldn't compete with Akademiks because he was putting out these videos on such a rapid basis on maybe content that they didn't really want to comment about, that they didn't really want to speak of. So what they decided to do was just hire Akademiks, and it was the ultimate chess move. The show is about Akademiks. Joe was bought there just to give another perspective. Akademiks wasn't bought on the show to give a different perspective. Joe was the add-on. And obviously there's also Nadeska. Sound like a fucking creep. But that's the nature of the show. And if you don't accept that as being the nature of the show, then you just aren't paying enough attention. You're just not seeing the patterns. You're not noticing that most of Akademiks' content was made up of reporting court cases and legal documents, shooting, everything that we would consider quote unquote street shit. So why all of a sudden, now that he has done this content so strongly to the point that artists are now thinking about him when they're recording the content, now all of a sudden he should step back? I'm more than sure, or at least you have to give somebody the credit and assume that they are intelligent enough to know that when you choose to make this sort of a path for yourself, you are supposed to be aware of those dangers. You're supposed to be aware of the heart disease. You're supposed to be aware of the cancer. You're supposed to be aware of people approaching you and slapping the shit out of you when you put their business out on the street. You are not discussing music anymore. You are discussing people's personal business. So you are aware of that if you're DJ Akademiks, and if you're just not, then you're a grown person and you'll figure it out eventually. Joe's figured this out from his own side when he's had feuds in the past, and people have, done what they've done to him because of what he said online. And what I also find interesting is all the while Joe's yelling at Akademiks, he's sitting next to, I'm not sure what he calls himself right now, and I don't really care. He's sitting next to Young Berg, somebody whose music no one ever really gave a shit about, but what was really, really known about Young Berg was the fact that he got slapped by Mano, the fact that he got his chain stolen, and they were just videos upon videos of different people wearing his chain. So most of what you heard about Young Berg had nothing to do with his music and everything to do with his personal business, with people getting violent on him and doing things to him. I'm pretty sure if there was a DJ Akademiks back then, Young Berg probably would have been a bit more popular, because he would just, like he does now, he would sort of just act as a PR firm for these kind of artists. And listen, this is putting no fault on Akademiks. It may sound like that, but anybody who thinks that, you don't understand content. Here's what you have to understand if you're making commentary. If you're making commentary, all you do is monitor opinions. That's what you really do. You talk about things and people are listening to you because you're discussing A, something that they want you to discuss, and B, they'd like to see if they disagree with you or not. That's the only reason why they're listening. They don't love you on a visceral level if you're a commentator. Do you think when you watch ESPN, do you think ESPN gets high ratings because they're ESPN and they're such a great network? Or is it because they're showing the Cavs against the Warriors? Do you think their view count would be higher when they presented golf than it would if they were showing the fucking NBA Finals? Of course it wouldn't, because they are, as Joe mentioned, they are simply just a vessel. A commentator, somebody who just shows you the window through something and presents something to you, is a vessel, just an empty container. And if Akademiks wasn't doing that kind of content, somebody else would be doing it. And somebody else is doing that kind of content. Plenty of people are. Why? Because they monitor your opinions and what you want to see. And it turns out that what a large part of quote unquote hip hop fans want to see these days are Instagram views. They want to see videos of people getting jumped. They want to see videos of people saying, "Hey, nigga, I pull up on you, nigga, I seen you outside the Staples Center, nigga, like that's what they want to see." Music isn't very exciting right now. It's not exactly in how many quote unquote classic albums can you think of right now? I mean, Big Crit's album was pretty dope, but I mean, how many albums are in line with that album this year? There's not much going on in music, and if there's not, then people are going to turn towards the tabloid side of music. What's very interesting about this is Joe seems to be complaining about access, because he mentioned something about and now, this PR, Instagram, fuckity fuck stuff, that's not Akademiks' fault, all right? Access is revealing a lot about all industries, about all walks of life. We're seeing what Access does with sports. We're seeing what Access does with politics. And now that we have a show like Everyday Struggle, which is, pretty much the biggest internet show, hip hop internet show ever, because it's funded by a big media brand, we are getting to see what Access does now. We're getting to see what those subjects like XXX, like those artists, now how they view themselves, knowing that they'll be viewed by those big engines like Everyday Struggle. Now the eye is starting to look at itself, and now we're really starting to see what everything is sort of made up of. So that's not something that Joe can really fault Akademiks for. To agree to do a show with him after you were aware, either you weren't aware of what his content was based on, which is completely ignorant, or you were aware of it, but now that your personal circumstances have been compromised, now you want to tell somebody to pull out. And that's a very unfair thing to do. I know a lot of you guys watch the show and all you really want is just Joe to just beat up on Akademiks. That's all you really want. There's not much of a divide of age. I mean, a lot of people say, well, Akademiks is 27 or 28 and I think Joe's 36. That's not a big gap. That's not a huge gap. It's not a huge... Whenever people play that sort of ageism thing, and that's a big topic on the show because Joe's always saying young niggas, he's always saying all that stuff. But it's always really funny when people say things like that because, 28 and 36, that's an 8-year difference. And there always seems to be such a gap with people when there's one person who's in their 20s and another person who's in their 30s. And I just sort of always ask people, I said, well, would it matter as much if one of them was 48 and the other one was 56? People always play these huge gaps of ageism and I'm this age and you're that age and you should sort of think in this way and I should think in this way. I'm not saying I'm completely outside of that because in my personal life, yes, I do see people in their 20s and I kind of see them do stupid shit. And I'm just like, well, of course he would do that shit. You're fucking 25. Of course he would do that. But it just still doesn't make it any less ridiculous. I mean, there's not big of an age divide. And of course, Everyday Struggle wouldn't work if it was DJ Akademiks and Busta Rhymes, who I think is, in his 40s, if not 50. It wouldn't work in that sense, but Joe is still at that age where he can still be a bit young-minded, but still hand over some form of wisdom. What do you guys think about this topic? Does this confuse you about Everyday Struggle as much as it does for me? But please let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time.
Hey, when that little fuckity fuck nigga behaves that way, you move.